What's up, ComicsVerse? I'm Connor, and I'm here with Eddy Decker. He's an illustrator. You've probably seen him at other cons, and he has an awesome new series coming out called Far Out. I just want to ask, since you're kind of breaking into the scene, what brought you to comics in the first place?
So it wasn't really comics that I got into right away. It was just drawing. It was doodling. I've been in it since I was honestly about 2 years old. I don't have any formal training in it. I'm just self-taught. So it's just a lot of sketching, doodling, and everything. It was only in high school that a friend of mine gave a speech in his speech class. And he said, what would be really funny is if you took this character and made it into a comic strip. And we went to a private school, so it wasn't something we thought we could really get away with, but we asked about it, and he said, as long as it's clean, as long as it's friendly, you're fine with that. And the characters in the book were some of the characters that premiered in that comic strip. So after I graduated, they said, you should really take this somewhere. And I didn't know comics, I didn't know, the art style, I didn't know the way that it should be laid out. I had to learn that on my own too. So the entire series took me about 14 years from start to finish to get it completely rendered, how I wanted it to look, make up a story.
So tell me a bit about Far Out. What's the, you're clearly the writer and artist for it. Where did the story germinate?
Yeah. So like I said, originally the idea of it came from a speech that was very reminiscent of like A Christmas Carol. So he said, well, what if the Grim Reaper just opened a restaurant and just served, like death instead of actual, like, quote unquote, kids' meals. And I said, let's do it. And eventually we just branched off of that, me and a few classmates. And I said, let's just scratch that idea. Let's just make up a story. And eventually we just got off track of that. And I said, what don't we see a lot of today? And I just kind of thought of things like Peanuts, Charlie Brown characters, Archie. They stay the same age for 40, 50, 60 years. So I always wanted to have my own characters, so I eventually named them, I gave them a backstory, and I said, let's just make them age progress every year. Obviously, my classmates didn't follow me with it, they went off and did their own thing, so I just single-handedly tried to write it, color it, illustrate it, figure out how to print it and everything, so the characters are basically just my own that you get to follow every year as they grow up, so everyone at some age can relate to it.
And so for people who kind of want to do what you do in terms of writing and designing their own comics, are there any challenges or kind of words of wisdom that you would give to kind of get over those challenges?
I mean, I've had a lot of stumbling blocks. I've had a lot of writer blocks. I've had times where I don't know how the pose should look. So I am not one necessarily to have the original pose in my mind. I always have to look. So I people watch. I look at how they're dressed. I look at how they pose, how they stand, what the modern society today dresses as, because you don't want to keep it back in the 50s. You want to keep it, modern so kids can relate. And just overall, if people want to do something like this, just have an idea and ask questions. I mean, I had to go through probably 2 or 3, 4 maybe different professional publications just to say, I don't know what I'm doing. What are some things I'm looking for? What kind of layout should I do? What kind of paper should I use when I print it? And it was a little embarrassing at first because going into the field, you think you would know that, but I didn't. So, I mean, honestly, just have an idea, have a question, ask questions.
Okay, we have Far Out, 8th grade. What's next?
So next up is freshman year. Obviously, they're going to go into high school. Each one is not going to be obviously named the grade, but each one is going to follow them every year in a real-time progression story. So as best as I can, I release a book every year. It comes out online first, and then in a book series like that. So it's going to deal with what happens in high school, getting bullied, meeting new friends, maybe having friends go to a different school. You're still a teenager, obviously, so there's going to be rebellion.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here. That was Eddy Decker. This has been ComicsVerse. You can check him out at cons or check his book out, Far Out, 8th grade. Freshman year coming up. I'm Connor. This has been ComicsVerse. Like and subscribe and check us out online.